Story 1. I was 17 the summer my dad decided we'd take a trip to his cousin's old cabin in Vermont. We didn't do vacations, at least not the kind you'd post about. Most summers were spent swatting mosquitoes in our backyard in West Hartford or helping my mom with house projects that never got finished. But that year was different. Dad had just been laid off from his job at a logistics firm. He didn't say much about it. He wasn't the talking type. But I knew it hit him hard. He looked tired all the time. Quiet, like he was constantly somewhere else. Mom tried to keep things normal, but I caught her crying in the laundry room once. That's how I knew we were broke. So when Uncle Nate, well, technically Dad's cousin, called and offered us a free week at his old cabin near a place called Mill Creek, Dad said yes without thinking twice. "It's up in the Green Mountains," he told us one morning, toast in his mouth, newspaper spread out in front of him. "Middle of nowhere. Should be good for us. Fresh air, no distractions." "Does it even have Wi-Fi?" My little sister Riley groaned. She was 12 and addicted to her phone. Dad smiled but didn't answer. The truth was, I wasn't thrilled either. I had just finished my junior year, and all I wanted was to hang out with my friends, maybe try to make something out of the last summer before everything changed. But I kept my mouth shut. He needed this. We all did. The drive took about 5 hours. Riley fell asleep halfway through, and Mom played soft rock the whole time like she always did on road trips. I stared out the window, watching towns get smaller, roads narrower, trees thicker. By the time we reached Mill Creek, my phone had 1 bar left, and that disappeared the moment we turned onto the dirt road that led to the cabin. It was old, not falling apart, but weathered. A single-story wooden structure with dark pine siding and a steep roof. There was a rusted tin mailbox out front that said Miller in faded black paint. Dad explained that the cabin had been in the family for decades. Uncle Nate used it for hunting sometimes, but hadn't been up in over a year. Behind the cabin was a sloping forest that seemed to go on forever. I could hear a creek somewhere nearby, but couldn't see it. The air smelled like pine needles and something earthy, like damp wood. Peaceful, I guess, but also still. Too still. Inside was simple. A living room with a stone fireplace, 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen with yellowed tile, and a screened porch out back. No Wi-Fi, no TV. 1 old radio that only picked up static. Mom called it rustic. Riley called it prehistoric. I didn't say anything. That first night, we made grilled cheese on a gas stove and played cards by lantern light. It was kind of nice, actually. No distractions. Just us. I didn't sleep great, though. Not because it was uncomfortable. My mattress was surprisingly soft. But because the woods outside made noises I wasn't used to. Not just the normal stuff, crickets, wind, owls, but something heavier. Branches cracking, something moving. Several times. I chalked it up to deer. The next day was hot and clear. Dad and I went out to chop firewood while Mom and Riley explored the creek. I noticed a tree at the edge of the woods near the property line had strange symbols carved into it. Circles overlapping triangles, not graffiti. Something older. "See that?" I asked Dad. He wiped sweat off his brow and glanced at it. "Hunters mark trees sometimes," he said. "Could be from years ago." I didn't push it. That evening, we had a small fire in the stone pit behind the cabin. Riley roasted marshmallows and complained about the mosquitoes. Mom sipped wine from a coffee mug. It was peaceful again. The sky turned this pale purple before going dark. I remember thinking it was the quietest I'd ever heard the world. Until Riley screamed. It came out of nowhere. A single, shrill, blood-curdling scream that sent the fire crackling higher as she jumped back from her chair, pointing at the tree line. "There was someone there," she sobbed, "looking right at me." Dad jumped up, grabbed the flashlight, and charged into the woods. I followed. We scanned the area but saw nothing. No footprints, no broken branches. Just shadows and trees. "You sure?" Dad asked when we got back. "I swear," she whispered. "He was tall, wearing something dark, just staring. We all slept in the same room that night. I didn't fall asleep until the sun started to rise. The next few days were quiet, but the mood changed. Dad kept the flashlight with him at all times. Riley barely went outside. Mom started checking the locks every few hours. I tried to tell myself it was just nerves. Maybe Riley had imagined it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But I'd heard something out there too, and I knew how real fear looked on someone's face. On Thursday, things got worse. Dad had gone into town to get more propane. Riley and Mom were napping. I was on the porch reading when I saw it. At the edge of the woods, same spot where Riley had screamed, a figure stood half hidden between the trees. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there, watching. I froze. He wore dark clothing, maybe a hoodie. I couldn't see his face. My heart slammed against my ribs as I reached back for the door and slipped inside, locking it behind me. I ran to the back window. Nothing. He was gone. When Dad came back, I told him. He looked spooked, but tried to play it off. Could be a hunter. Someone got turned around. In the same spot? 3 times? He didn't answer. That night, around midnight, the sound came again. Heavier than an animal. Branches breaking. I was wide awake, staring at the ceiling, when I heard the screen door creak open downstairs. I nearly threw up. I grabbed my phone. No signal. I moved to the bedroom door and listened. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Inside. I crept across the hall to Riley's room and shook her awake. She blinked at me, confused, but I covered her mouth and whispered, "Someone's in the house." She started shaking. We tiptoed to Mom and Dad's room. I nudged Dad awake. He sat up fast, eyes wide. "What?" "Someone's downstairs." He didn't speak, just grabbed the baseball bat he'd leaned next to the bed. We moved as a group toward the staircase. He motioned for us to stay back. I heard it then. The radio downstairs. It was on, blasting static. Dad went down. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't that. The radio, unplugged, was blaring. The screen door was open again. No sign of anyone. We checked every room, every closet. Nothing. We stayed up until morning. Friday was supposed to be our last full day. But when we packed up to leave early, the car wouldn't start. Battery dead, even though it had been fine all week. "No problem," Dad muttered. "We'll jump it." Except the jumper cables were gone. So was the axe from the woodpile, and 2 of the propane canisters. Something was wrong. We couldn't call for help. No signal. Nearest town was over 10 miles. "We're walking," Dad said. "Now." But when we reached the trail down the dirt road, we found something else. Footprints, dozens, circling the house, going into the woods, coming back out, all barefoot, and worse, symbols, carved into trees all along the path, the same ones I'd seen before. We didn't speak, just turned around and locked ourselves inside. That night was the longest of my life. Around 2 a.m., they came. At first, I thought it was wind, but then I heard it. Whispers. Not from one voice, from many. Software chanting. Then the thumping started. On the porch, on the walls, underneath the floorboards. We all sat in the living room, every light on, holding hands. The whispers grew louder. The radio came on again. This time it wasn't static. It was voices, speaking in a language I didn't understand. Then came the knock. Not a banging, a knock. 3 soft raps. Then silence. Dad grabbed the bat and opened the door. No one was there, but something had been left on the steps. The missing propane tank, and our jumper cables, both covered in mud. We left at dawn. Didn't pack, didn't eat. Just shoved the stuff into the car and drove until we hit a gas station with a signal. We never talked about it after. Dad said maybe it was squatters, or a local cult. Maybe we'd stumbled onto someone else's land. Mom didn't say anything. Riley still sleeps with the light on. As for me, I sometimes dream of the whispers, the way they slid through the cracks in the walls, the way they knew our names. I looked up the symbols once. Closest I found were old pagan boundary markers, meant to invite something in, not keep it out. The cabin still belongs to Uncle Nate, but no one's been back since. And if you're ever near Mill Creek, Vermont, don't follow the sound of the radio. If you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to stay updated with our upcoming scary stories. Story 2. I never used to think twice about walking alone. Not when I was 14 anyway. That age felt like a strange, messy in-between. Still too young to drive, too old for babysitters. I had this half-baked confidence, the kind that comes with being given just a little more room to roam. That summer, I finally got my first taste of it. It was the summer before high school, when I still wore puka shell necklaces without irony and thought lip gloss counted as makeup. My best friend back then was a girl named Brianna Halley. We'd met in 6th grade homeroom, bonded over a shared love of cheesy horror movies and Cheetos. Brianna was everything I wasn't. Bold, tanned from soccer camp, and somehow always knew the lyrics to every song before it hit the charts. Her mom, Denise, was a nurse with one of those flexible travel jobs that let them fly out for cheap. That July, she got assigned to a 2-week training seminar in Wren Hollow, a beach resort town tucked into the Gulf Coast of Texas. Denise had the brilliant idea of turning it into a girls' trip. "You two can hang out at the resort while I sit through boring lectures," she said, handing Brianna the hotel email confirmation. Wren Hollow sounded made up, like a name you'd give a fake town in a storybook, but it was real enough. A sleepy beach community just south of Corpus Christi, known mostly for birdwatching tours, seafood shacks, and some eco-conscious luxury resort called the Driftway Inn, where we'd be staying. I remember how excited we were in the airport, sharing a bag of sour gummy worms and talking about the boys we hoped to meet. Brianna had a list of things she wanted to do: jet ski, parasail, get a temporary tattoo, and eat her weight in shrimp tacos. I mostly wanted to sit by the pool with a book and feel grown up. I didn't know that trip would be the last time I ever felt fully safe being alone. The Driftway was beautiful in the way vacation places are. Manicured, clean, almost artificial. Palm trees lined the winding driveway like toy soldiers. The lobby had one of those saltwater aquariums built into the wall, and the whole place smelled faintly of citrus and chlorine. Our room was on the 3rd floor, ocean-facing, with a little balcony that looked out over the surf. The air conditioning was so cold it made my nose tingle when we first walked in. "Hell yeah," Brianna said, diving onto one of the queen beds. "This is better than I thought." We settled in fast. Denise gave us a set of rules. Stay on resort property, keep our phones on us, and be back in the room by 9. It was stricter than we'd hoped, but not unreasonable. The first couple days were perfect. Sunburned shoulders, iced lemonades by the pool, and hours wandering the tiny shops that lined the boardwalk. We got matching braided anklets at one of the artisan booths. On our 3rd day, a Tuesday, we signed up for henna tattoos from a stand that had popped up near the resort's beach bar. That's where the story begins. It was around 3:30 p.m. when we sat down at the booth. A woman named Inez ran it. She was in her early 40s, quiet but warm, and she had this graceful way of moving, like someone who painted with her hands for a living. Brianna went first, picking a sunburst design that curled around her wrist. I chose something simpler, just vines and dots up the back of my left hand. We were giggling about how it tickled when I first noticed him. A man, mid-30s maybe, tall with that wiry kind of athletic build, like a rock climber or someone who jogs for fun. He had on a faded blue tank top, gray board shorts, and mirrored sunglasses that reflected the sky. He stood about 15 feet away, sipping a drink from a tall glass and just watching. At first, I didn't think anything of it. People passed by the booth all the time, but he didn't move, didn't look at anything, just stood there. "Creeper alert, 3 o'clock," Brianna muttered without moving her lips. I smirked. Maybe he wants a butterfly tattoo. But my joke didn't sound funny out loud. I felt it too, that subtle shift in the air, like we were suddenly on stage and he was the only audience. Inez must have picked up on it because she glanced his way, said something in Spanish under her breath, then turned her attention back to Brianna's wrist. The man finally moved, just walked off toward the pool deck, casual as anything. He was probably bored, I said, but I couldn't shake the odd feeling. Like he hadn't just seen us. He'd picked us. We finished our tattoos by 4. Denise had booked a dinner reservation at a seafood grill down the beach for 6:30, and Brianna wanted to check out the resort souvenir shop before getting ready. "I'm just gonna run up to the room and shower first," I told her. "Cool. Meet you in the lobby at 6? Deal." There were 2 ways to get back to the room. One was the outside stairwell near the pool, hot and noisy. The other was through the air-conditioned breezeway that cut past the boutique shops and up the elevator near the spa. I picked the breezeway. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like sandalwood. A steel drum cover of a Taylor Swift song played faintly from hidden speakers. A few people milled around, sunburned couples, sleepy kids eating ice cream, and a man playing with a drone camera just outside the window. I was halfway to the elevator when I saw him again. The man from before. He was leaning against the wall near the elevator bank, sunglasses now tucked into his shirt collar, eyes on his phone. He looked up once, just briefly, but it was enough. A warning bell went off in my chest. Still, I didn't want to overreact. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't talking to me. He wasn't even looking at me. I pressed the elevator button. It dinged. The doors opened. I stepped inside. So did he. We were alone. I reached to press the 3rd floor button. He didn't press anything. My heart started to beat faster. People don't get into elevators without pressing a floor. Unless they're going to the same place as you. Or they're not going anywhere at all. I stood very still, watching the floor numbers light up. 1, 2, ding. The doors slid open. I walked out, heard his footsteps behind me. 3 turns to the left, room 317. I walked faster, so did he. Not running, just matching. I felt it again, that cold, dropping dread. My keycard shook in my hand as I reached for the lock. I didn't turn to see how close he was. I just shoved the card in the slot. Red light. Try again. Green. The door opened. His hand touched my shoulder. I don't remember making the sound I made, but it ripped out of me, high-pitched, panicked, raw. I yanked away, slammed the door shut, and twisted the lock hard enough to rattle the handle. Then I stood there, forehead against the wood, breathing like I'd run a marathon. He didn't knock, didn't try the handle. He just stood there. I watched his shadow through the gap under the door. 1 minute, maybe 2. Then it was gone. Denise called resort security. They took it seriously. I gave them a description: height, clothes, age, drink in hand. They pulled security footage, checked access logs. Turns out he wasn't a guest. He'd slipped in from the beach entrance. No room key, no ID. They found him less than an hour later down by the sand volleyball court, watching 2 other teenage girls. They held him until police arrived. He didn't resist. Said he was just waiting for someone. They arrested him. We found out later from one of the front desk employees, quietly, off the record, that this wasn't the first time he'd been seen around resorts along the Gulf. Different name each time. No record of staying. Always alone. Always watching. They never said what he planned to do. Maybe he didn't plan anything. Maybe he was just waiting for a moment when someone left a door unlocked. I didn't sleep well the rest of that trip. Denise made us stay close. Brianna tried to brush it off. "Good thing you screamed like a banshee, huh?" But I saw the way she double-checked the locks at night. We didn't talk about it much after that. But sometimes I still dream about that hallway. The pink light, the footsteps behind me, the sound of the elevator ding. I think about that trip every time someone tells a girl she's being paranoid. Because I wasn't. And I still don't know what would have happened if the light had blinked red a second longer. Story 3. I never cared much for the woods. Give me warm sand, salty air, and an old cooler packed with beer, and I'm good. I grew up near Gulfport, Mississippi. Summers meant beach volleyball, bonfires, and crabbing off the pier. The only trees I liked were palm trees. But my wife, Kate, she was a different story. She was raised in Spokane, Washington, where the mountains kiss the clouds and the pines go on forever. Her family did those classic camping trips, tents in the rain, s'mores, singing songs they never admitted they knew. She told me once that the sound of wind through trees was the only thing that ever made her feel small in a good way. So when she found this charming, secluded cabin experience called Whispering Cedars Retreat tucked into the forest of northern Oregon, I let her book it. 3 nights, adults only, no kids, no screens, no cell service, just clean air and the sound of birds. It's good for us, she'd said, closing her laptop with a satisfied little grin. Good for us, I repeated, already missing my beach chair. We left early Friday morning from our apartment in Portland, driving Kate's old Toyota 4Runner through winding back roads for almost 5 hours. The pavement turned to gravel somewhere after Wallowa, and the GPS glitched out half an hour before we saw the first wooden sign. Welcome to Whispering Cedars, disconnect. Unwind. Reconnect. I cracked a window. The air was cooler, sharper, clean in a way that made your nose sting a little. We pulled up to a main lodge that looked like it had been built by someone who'd watched Little House on the Prairie one too many times. Log beams, green roof, wraparound porch, and a rope swing hanging from an old cedar tree. Wind chimes made from antlers clinked gently near the door. Kate grinned like a kid seeing her favorite ride at the fair. "Oh, this is perfect," I kissed her hand. "You win this one." The woman at the front desk, Clara, maybe mid-40s, plaid shirt and a ponytail, checked us in with the kind of warm hospitality you couldn't fake. She handed us a canvas tote bag with 2 refillable water bottles, a hand-drawn trail map, and a printed itinerary. "You two are in cabin 3, the one tucked furthest back. That's our honeymoon hideout," she winked. "Nobody next door this weekend, so you'll have total privacy." "Just how we like it," Kate said, squeezing my arm. We parked in a gravel pull-off and walked down a lantern-lined trail to cabin 3. It sat at the edge of a slope, with a small porch facing a steep drop of forest, like the earth had been scooped away in a perfect semicircle. The cabin itself was quaint. Cedar-scented, simple, but well-kept. There was a king bed wrapped in thick flannel blankets, a kitchenette, and a little wood stove tucked in the corner. Best of all, a sliding glass door that opened to a deck with nothing but trees in every direction. "No people," I said. "Just us," Kate said. We unpacked, cracked a bottle of wine, and watched the sun sink behind the tree line. That night, we joined 6 other couples at the main lodge for dinner. Steak, potatoes, roasted vegetables, and a live acoustic guitarist playing Fleetwood Mac covers. Everyone was friendly. One couple, Josh and Carmen, early 30s like us, sat beside us and traded vacation stories. "You ever hear about the hiker who went missing out here last spring?" Josh asked halfway through his second glass of wine. Carmen groaned. "Oh God, not this again." "What?" Kate leaned in, clearly hooked. Josh grinned. "Guy rented cabin 5. Went for a morning walk, never came back." I chuckled. "And this is the part where you tell us his ghost knocks on windows, right?" Josh laughed. "Nah, nothing that dramatic. But people say weird stuff happens up here sometimes. Whispers, things moving, someone standing outside a window when no one should be there." Carmen rolled her eyes. "It's the woods, babe. They creak and moan and make people paranoid." Josh shrugged. "I'm just saying, Some of the staff won't even go into cabin 5 at night. Good thing we're in cabin 3, I said, raising my glass. Later that night, back at the cabin, we lit the stove, played cards, and then crawled under the heavy blankets. The silence was different than city silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was heavy. Like the trees had soaked up all the sound and weren't planning to give it back. Around 1:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. Not to a sound, but to a smell. It was faint, sour, like something left to rot. I sat up and sniffed the air. Kate stirred beside me. "You smell that?" I asked. She wrinkled her nose. "Like old trash?" I got out of bed and padded toward the tiny hallway between our room and the secondary guest room on the other side of the cabin. It was dark, colder than the bedroom. I opened the door to the guest room. It creaked too loud for comfort. The smell hit harder there. I turned on the bedside lamp. The room looked untouched. Clean. The twin beds still neatly made. No open windows, no animals. No reason for that awful, stale, meat-sweet odor. I checked the bathroom attached to the room. Empty. No leaks, no dead critters. Nothing. I opened a window to air it out and shut the door behind me. The next morning, the smell was gone. We ate eggs on the porch and watched a pair of red-tailed hawks circle overhead. Then we joined a nature walk with Clara and her massive old shepherd mix named Bodie. He led us up a ridge trail with a few other couples, weaving between trees like he'd done it 1,000 times. At one point, Clara stopped and pointed to a ring of stones half buried in moss. "That's a marker," she said. "Some say the land here used to be sacred, watching ground. People believed something lived in the trees and watched from the high places." Kate asked, "Like a spirit?" "Something like that. Old legends. My granddad used to say the cedars whisper when it's near." We all laughed a little. But Bodie stood completely still for almost 30 seconds, just staring into the trees. That night, things got worse. Kate and I returned from another dinner at the lodge, a little buzzed from the complimentary wine tasting, and got ready for bed. We were brushing our teeth when we both heard it. Thump. A soft, heavy drop from the other side of the cabin. We froze. I looked at Kate. Her toothbrush was still in her mouth, eyes wide. "That came from the guest room," I said. She spit and nodded. "You think something fell?" I grabbed the flashlight again and crept to the connecting hallway. The air was icy. That same rot smell had returned. Stronger. I opened the guest room door. Nothing had fallen. Nothing moved. Until my flashlight passed across the far corner, and something shifted. A shape. Still. Too tall to be a person. But wrong somehow. Not a coat rack. Not furniture. Just there. I didn't breathe. Didn't speak. I backed up slowly, heart pounding in my ears, and shut the door. "There's something in there," I whispered. Kate's hand flew to her mouth. She reached for her phone, but no service, of course. I pulled on jeans, grabbed my jacket, and told her to stay locked inside. Then I ran, fast, through the dark trail to the lodge. I rang the bell over and over until a man came out from the back, wiping his hands with a rag. "Problem?" he asked. I explained everything. His face darkened at the mention of cabin 3. "Name's Mark," he said. "I handle maintenance and security. Let's go." He grabbed a flashlight and a rifle. When we got back, Kate was still inside, shaking. Mark entered the guest room slowly, rifle raised. Less than a minute later, he came back. "That back door was wide open," he said. "The one we never used?" He nodded. "Whoever or whatever was in here is gone." Kate asked, "Was it an animal?" He didn't answer right away. "A couple weeks ago, a couple from Salem saw a man standing outside their cabin, middle of the night. We thought it was a hiker off course, but now—" He looked out at the trees. "There's stories up here about someone who went missing years ago, a logger. Got lost during a snowstorm. People say he never left. Still lives out there. Watches. Follows the trails. And sometimes he comes back. We packed up at dawn. Clara didn't ask questions when we said we were leaving early. She refunded us immediately and offered an apology. On behalf of the forest, Mark walked us to the car. "We'll be installing cameras," he said, "and probably sealing off that back exit for good." As we pulled away, I looked once, just once, into the mirror. And I swear to God, at the very edge of the tree line, just past the cabin roofs, a man was standing. Motionless. Watching. Story 4. I never cared about weddings. Not in the Pinterest board, vision dream, white dress and a horse-drawn carriage kind of way. Growing up, I watched my mom marry 3 different men in 10 years. And each time she swore this one would be forever. I guess somewhere along the line I stopped believing in the whole fairy tale part. So when Darren proposed, on the back patio of a bar in Tempe with a plastic ring he bought as a joke, I said yes before he even finished asking. Not because it was romantic, but because it felt solid, like something we could build on. We got married in the county courthouse. Just us, a witness from Darren's job, and a judge who looked like she hated weddings even more than I did. It lasted 12 minutes. We kissed, signed the paper, and walked out into a sunburned Tuesday afternoon like nothing had changed. But Darren, he wanted to do something. "It doesn't have to be a big deal," he said, "just 1 week. Somewhere quiet. Just us." We picked Cypress Bay, a small coastal town about 2 hours north of Santa Barbara. Not flashy like Malibu or crowded like Big Sur, just remote enough to feel like we were disappearing. Darren found a place called the Altamira Resort and Spa, perched on a cliffside with white stucco buildings and terracotta roofs. All ocean views and palm trees. It looked perfect online. A real hidden gem, according to travel blogs. The kind of place where celebrities retreated after divorces or breakdowns. We booked 5 nights in a corner suite with a balcony that overlooked the Pacific. Suite 605. We pulled in just before golden hour, the whole place glowing like it was dipped in honey. The air smelled like eucalyptus and seawater. A valet took our bags and handed us cool towels. Darren grinned at me like a kid on Christmas morning. "Smell that?" he asked. I nodded. "Like a yoga studio and money had a baby." He laughed and kissed my cheek. I didn't say it out loud, but something in my chest finally started to loosen. Like maybe this was what we needed. Check-in was easy. A woman at the desk named Michelle congratulated us and gave us a complimentary drink voucher. She said the suite was one of their best. "You'll love it," she smiled. "The sunsets from 605 are unreal." She handed us 2 old-fashioned key cards. Real keys, not plastic. Gold and heavy. I don't know why, but I liked that. The elevator was slow and made a low groaning sound as we climbed to the top floor. Darren pretended to hold his breath like it was going to break. I elbowed him. The hallway was quiet. Thick carpet, white walls. Every room had a little brass plaque. 601, 602, 603. Darren unlocked it with a little theatrical bow and pushed the door open. The first thing I noticed was the light. Floor-to-ceiling windows covered the entire back wall. Beyond them, the ocean stretched out like a painted backdrop. So perfect it almost didn't look real. A low breeze came through the balcony door and brushed against my skin. "Damn," I whispered. "Right?" Darren said. "This is the kind of room people die in." I laughed. "We just got married. Maybe don't say die in the honeymoon suite." He smirked. "Fair." We stepped inside. The room was beautiful. Wooden floors, a king-size bed with white sheets, a deep soaking tub, and a bottle of champagne chilling in a metal bucket beside a handwritten note. "Welcome to Altamira. Enjoy your stay." We spent the first night on the balcony, watching the sun drop into the water like a coin into a wishing well. We talked about stupid things, future vacations, maybe kids one day, where we'd want to live if we could live anywhere. I don't remember falling asleep, just that I woke up cold. The window was open and the room had a strange draft. Darren was snoring, face buried in a pillow. I got up to close the balcony door. As I did, I felt it. Something off. A scent. Not strong, not rotten, just strange, like wet copper, metallic, almost like when you bite your lip and taste blood. I stepped outside to sniff the air. Nothing. I went back inside. The smell was gone. The next morning, I told Darren. He said maybe it was the sea breeze messing with my sinuses. Salt air's weird like that. He kissed me and suggested we hit the spa. I didn't argue. The rest of the day was fine. Perfect, actually. Massages, lunch by the pool, drinks in the sun. By the time we got back to the room, the weird smell had faded from my memory. That night, we had sex for the first time since the wedding. Slow, quiet, intimate. When we finished, I rested my head on his chest and closed my eyes. Then I smelled it again. Faint. Fainter than before. But still there. Blood and salt and something older. This time, I didn't say anything. On the third night, I had a dream. I was in the bathtub, submerged in hot water. The lights were off. I felt calm at first. Peaceful. Then I noticed the water getting thicker. Sticky. I tried to stand, but couldn't. My legs were heavy. The water had turned to syrup. It clung to my skin. When I finally sat up, my chest was coated in something red. The tub was filled with blood. And not fresh. It smelled old, rotten. I looked at the floor and saw footprints leading away. Wet, dark prints across the marble. Then I woke up. I didn't tell Darren about the dream, just showered in silence and tried to scrub the feeling off me. But something had shifted. In the light, the room looked the same. But the air felt different. Heavy. Pressed down. The way a church feels after a funeral. Darren was watching a movie while I stood by the closet. I opened it slowly. Nothing but robes. Still, I checked behind them, then under the bed, then the drawers. "Babe," he said, "what are you doing?" I forced a smile. "Just making sure." He tilted his head. "You okay?" I wanted to say no, but I didn't. That night, the smell came back stronger, like rust and dirt. It was concentrated near the bathroom. I opened the sink cabinet. Empty, then the linen drawer, then the floor vent. That's when I saw it. Something small, wedged between the slats of the vent. I reached in and pulled it out with 2 fingers. A piece of fabric, dark blue. Faded, cotton, and stained. Dark spots, dried brown, like blood. I showed Darren. He blinked. "That could be anything." "From where?" I asked. "This isn't part of the room." He frowned. "Let's call the desk." Michelle answered. She was polite but firm. "We haven't had any complaints from that room before," she said, "but I'll send housekeeping just in case." They came, cleaned the vents, wiped everything down, sprayed some lavender stuff. The smell came back within the hour. On the 5th night, Darren left for ice. He never came back. At first, I thought he was just taking his time. Maybe he got distracted, talked to someone. But 20 minutes passed, then 30. I texted him. "Everything okay?" No response. I tried calling, voicemail. I waited another 10 minutes, then went downstairs. The ice machine was just outside the elevator. The bucket was lying on the floor, cracked. No sign of Darren. I went to the front desk. Michelle wasn't there. A man I hadn't seen before offered to call security. They searched the grounds, checked the cameras. And that's when it got strange. The camera in the hallway showed Darren walking out of the room at 10:32 p.m. Then, nothing. No exit footage, no return, No sightings anywhere on the property. Just gone. The police were called. I gave my statement, showed them our texts, the photos we'd taken. They searched the hotel, questioned staff, checked the beach, the cliffs. No sign, no body, nothing. I stayed in the room until sunrise, alone. And that's when I smelled it again, stronger than ever. Rotting metal, like something buried. I opened the bathroom vent again. This time, I pulled harder. The grate bent. Behind it, I found something wrapped in plastic. I unrolled it slowly. A photo. Polaroid. Blurry. Two people on the balcony of our suite. A man and a woman. Holding champagne. Smiling. Not me. Not Darren. On the back, in red ink. Suite 605, May 14th, 2019. She went first. They never found Darren. The hotel refunded me, offered therapy, paid for travel, apologized in every corporate way possible. I didn't take their lifetime stay offer. I don't stay in hotels anymore. I don't sleep with the lights off. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I smell it. Faint. Old. Like something that was never supposed to be found. And I wonder, which of us went first? Story 5. I never thought our first vacation as a married couple would end with a blood-stained carpet, a police report, and a woman screaming in the hallway. We'd been married exactly 6 days. After nearly 2 years of planning, rescheduling, thanks to COVID, and a last-minute venue switch due to flooding, the wedding finally happened. It was beautiful, intimate, candlelit, a winery outside Sacramento with 60 of our closest people. And when it was over, it felt like we exhaled for the first time in months. The honeymoon was supposed to be our reward, not a fancy cruise or an all-inclusive in Cancun like some of our friends had done. Just something simple, quiet, a road trip up the Oregon coast. I'd always wanted to see the Pacific from that side of the country, and Clara, my wife, was big on fog, lighthouses, and pine trees. It was our first real trip together, just the two of us. No schedules, no family, no expectations. We chose a little coastal town called Emerald Bay. Not a huge tourist spot, more like a local secret. The kind of place where every coffee shop doubles as a bookstore and everyone knows the name of the dog sitting outside the general store. Our stay was at a boutique motel called the Driftwood Inn, perched right on the edge of a cliff. It was the kind of place you'd find on a list called Top 10 Hidden Gems for couples who hate crowds. Room 219. Ocean view. King bed. Wood-paneled walls and a fireplace that worked with real wood logs. A handwritten welcome card on the nightstand signed by someone named Marcy. The first few days were exactly what they should have been. Slow, sweet, and a little indulgent. We ate clam chowder on the pier, wandered antique shops where Clara tried on vintage sunglasses, and we hiked to a lookout where seals sunbathed on flat rocks. We talked about stupid things like whether we'd get a dog or a cat first, how many kids we might have, and if we could ever move to a town like this. But on the fourth day, everything changed. That morning started off normal enough. We'd planned to hike a nearby trail that looped around Bennett Head, a forested cliff with sweeping views. Clara had read about it in a travel blog and was excited because it had an old fire lookout tower at the top. We packed snacks, water, her Polaroid camera. Clara wore a red windbreaker and her hair in a messy bun. I remember that detail clearly because I told her she looked like the poster for some kind of moody indie film. She rolled her eyes and kissed me. The trailhead was only a 5-minute drive from the motel, but it was secluded. A gravel parking area, a small sign with a faded map, and a wooden information kiosk with trail rules and bear warnings that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. We were maybe 40 minutes into the hike when Clara said she needed to pee. There was an outhouse at the last trail split, she said, pointing behind us. Can you wait here? I nodded. I'll sit and drink water like the delicate man I am. She grinned and kissed my cheek, then backtracked down the path. I found a mossy log and checked the photos on my phone. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I stood up and started walking slowly in the direction she'd gone. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but something felt off. I was rounding a bend when I saw her coming toward me, fast. Her face was tight, pale, her jaw clenched. "Clara?" She didn't speak until she reached me. Then she grabbed my arm and whispered, "There was a guy just standing by the outhouse. He didn't say anything, just stared." "What?" "I went past him. He didn't move, just watched me. When I came out, he was closer, like he was waiting. I I don't know, I booked it out of there." I looked over her shoulder but didn't see anyone. "What did he look like?" "Tall, long black hair, beard, weird eyes, like too wide. He wore one of those canvas jackets, the kind hunters wear. He didn't say a word." We didn't finish the hike. On the way back to the car, we passed a couple coming the other way, and I told them, quietly, to be careful near the outhouse. They said thanks and looked confused. Back at the motel, Clara was quiet. She didn't even post photos from the morning hike, which she usually did religiously. Later, she tried to laugh it off. "Probably just a weird loner. Could have been high. I'm fine." I nodded, but I didn't really believe that. That night, we stayed in. Ordered takeout from a pizza place down the street. Watched a documentary about van life couples. I remember thinking, I'm lucky. She's safe. We're okay. We weren't. The knock came at 1:14 a.m. 3 slow, spaced-out taps. Clara stirred beside me. "Did you hear that?" I was already sitting up. I pulled on my hoodie and walked to the door. Our room had one of those old peepholes where everything looked fisheye and distorted, but I could clearly make out someone standing outside. He wore a gray hoodie pulled low and dark jeans, head down, not moving. I didn't open the door. "Can I help you?" I said loudly. No answer. Just the sound of wind outside and the faint creak of the hallway floor. Then another knock. This time louder, more urgent. I backed away. "Wrong room," I called, louder this time. Clara was sitting up now. Her voice shook. "Who is it?" I didn't answer. Then suddenly the handle jiggled. Hard. Once. Twice. I grabbed my phone and dialed the front desk. No answer. No one picked up. That's when I remembered the motel didn't have 24-hour staff. Marcy had said check-ins after 8 p.m. had to call a number taped to the office door. Clara grabbed my arm. "He's trying to get in." I know. Another knock, followed by a voice this time. Low, gravelly. "I left something. Just need a second." Left something. My heart spiked. Clara's eyes went wide. That voice, it's him, the guy from the trail. I stared at her. "You're sure?" "I swear to God, that's him." I turned back to the door. "If you don't leave, I'm calling the police," I said. He didn't respond. But I heard something then. A click, like a blade unfolding. We backed up. I grabbed the iron poker from the fireplace and held it like a bat. Clara was dialing 911. He jiggled the handle again, then slammed his shoulder into the door with a loud thud. Clara was sobbing. Come on, pick up." Then silence. He was gone. We waited, barely breathing. It took the police 9 minutes to arrive. 9 of the longest minutes of my life. By then, he'd vanished. The investigation unfolded fast after that. Turns out, he'd broken into the motel's maintenance shed earlier that evening and taken a master key card. He had a bag stashed in one of the supply closets with zip ties, gloves, duct tape, and 2 knives, one with dried blood on it. His name was Eli Warren, 38, from Klamath Falls. A history of mental health issues, no fixed address. He'd been reported loitering near multiple hiking trails and had an active warrant for assault in Washington. They found a folder in his bag with printed photos, taken from public Instagram accounts, including several of Clara from earlier in the week. The police believed he'd followed us back from the trail, maybe even longer. We stayed in Emerald Bay for 2 more nights, waiting for our replacement rental car. He'd slashed the tires on ours. The motel moved us to a ground floor unit right next to the office. The owner, an older woman named Janice, apologized through tears and refunded us the full stay. We didn't leave the room except to get food from the corner store. We didn't talk much, just sat close with all the lights on. On the last night, Clara looked at me and said, "What would have happened if we hadn't locked the deadbolt?" I didn't answer. We're home now, back in Sacramento. The wedding photos came in last week. They're beautiful, everyone says so. But we haven't picked any to frame yet. Clara sleeps with a nightlight now. I keep a baseball bat under my side of the bed. Every time a floorboard creaks or the wind knocks a branch against the window, we both flinch. We don't talk about the Driftwood Inn much, not because we want to forget, but because we know how close we came to not making it back. Story 6, I never used to be nervous behind the wheel. I grew up driving back roads through the Smoky Mountains. Switchbacks and black ice never rattled me much. But that changed last summer. After what happened off Interstate 65 near Alabama's southern edge, something shifted in me. My name is Kyle Mercer. I'm 38, married to Leah, and father to 2 beautiful kids, Brielle, who's 9, and Mason, just turned 6. That road trip was supposed to be a gift, something special, and it was, just not in the way I meant. We were headed from our home in Cookeville, Tennessee, down to Gulf Shores, Alabama. We'd been planning it for months, a full week at a beachside condo, the kids building sandcastles while Leah and I pretended we were still in our 20s. Money had been tight since my job at the HVAC company scaled back hours, but Leah picked up a few extra nursing shifts and we figured it was worth the splurge. We'd do the drive ourselves, stay out of tourist traps, save a few bucks. The plan was simple. Leave at dawn, take our time, stop overnight in Montgomery, then finish the last leg in the morning. But plans have a way of bending under pressure. Around 3 p.m. that Friday, my boss called and offered me 2 quick installs, extra cash if I could do them Sunday morning. That meant we needed to shave a day off the trip. Leah wasn't thrilled, but she understood. We agreed. Leave Friday evening, drive straight through. Save on a hotel. Get to the beach before sunrise. Seemed doable. We packed the car after dinner, snacks, games, chargers, the works, and by 7:45 p.m., we were southbound on I-65 in my old Ford Edge. The kids were buzzing in the back seat, and the GPS showed an arrival time of 4:16 a.m. By 10:30, we were deep in rural Alabama. Leah had dozed off with her head against the window, hoodie drawn up. The kids were out cold, Mason with his Spider-Man blanket bunched under his chin, Brielle slumped against her car seat. The road was dead quiet. Just us and the endless black, the occasional hum of overhead signs, and the steady rhythm of the tires rolling over seams in the pavement. That's when I saw it. Up ahead, maybe a quarter mile, a strange flicker. 2 pulsing red lights, low to the ground, like hazard beacons. No other cars, no movement. Just those 2 lights and something blocking the highway. I slowed down instinctively. As we drew closer, I made out more details. Cones placed neatly around a dark-colored sedan parked diagonally across both lanes. Not a tow truck, not police, no flares, no reflectors, just stillness. A setup. "Leah," I whispered, nudging her shoulder. "Hey, wake up. Something's not right." She blinked at the lights, confused. "Is that a wreck?" I didn't answer. My hands gripped the wheel tighter as the headlights swept across the front of the car. 2 figures emerged from behind it, hooded silhouettes more than people, both moving slowly toward us. "Kids are asleep?" I asked. "Yeah. Kyle, what are you—" I rolled the driver's window down just a crack. One of them, a younger man, maybe in his early 20s, stepped up to my side. He smelled like stale smoke and sweat. I could see a chain around his neck and something glinting under his hoodie. "You all right, man?" I asked. He gave a half smile, then leaned in. Yeah, just open up real quick. I gotta ask you something. That's not how you ask for help. That's not how stranded people talk. I glanced in the side mirror. The second guy was walking toward the passenger side. Too casual, too slow, like they were waiting for something. No, I said, and rolled the window up. The guy's hand dipped into his hoodie pocket. Hold on, I muttered. I dropped the car into reverse and punched the gas, whipping the wheel hard left. The tires shrieked as we swung around. Leah yelped. Mason stirred. One of the cones bounced off our bumper, and I swerved around their car. I saw one of the red lights crunch under my tire. They're not stuck, I said. That was a trap. What the hell? Leah gasped. She turned to check on the kids, now wide awake and scared. We were barreling south again, the road wide open. I kept checking the mirror. Nothing. For maybe a minute. Then, headlights, one set, coming fast. Leah turned. Kyle, is that them? I didn't answer. Are they chasing us? Brielle asked, voice trembling. Everyone stay calm, I said. The headlights swerved into the far lane, sped up, and began flashing high beams. I pushed the Ford to 80, then 85. Then came the first pop, sharp, metallic. The SUV shuddered. What was that? Leah cried. Something hit a tire, maybe. Pop, another one. The steering went soft. Shit, I whispered. The edge began to drag to the right. I fought the wheel, trying to keep us steady. Brielle started sobbing. Mason yelled, Are we gonna crash? I'm calling 911, Leah said, hands fumbling for her phone. Do it. The headlights behind us surged forward, and then wham! The whole car jolted. They'd rammed us. We're on I-65 South, just past mile marker 197. Leah told the dispatcher, her voice cracking. A dark sedan's following us. They hit us, we have kids in the car. Please send someone, please. The edge was slowing. 2 rear tires shredded. I kept us moving. Every second counted. Wham! Again. Metal crunched. Hold on, I shouted. Then, like some divine intervention, I saw red and blue. A state trooper cruiser, lights blazing, came up from behind like a bullet out of hell. The car chasing us immediately peeled off, swerving across the median and tearing onto a side road. The cop followed, sirens blaring. I pulled onto the shoulder, heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. Leah was crying. The kids were crying. I just sat there, hands still locked to the wheel. We're safe, I said. We're okay. But I didn't believe it. 15 minutes later, another patrol car arrived. Then a wrecker. They had us towed to a gas station off Route 87. The officer, a young guy named Jeffries, told us we were lucky. Real lucky. Both rear tires had been punctured. .22 caliber. Likely from a modified handgun with a suppressor. Fired while they drove. Professional work. You're not the first, Jeffries said. We had a similar report from a couple up near Greenville 2 weeks back. Same setup. Fake breakdown, guys with cones, no ID. No one caught them until tonight. Did you get them? I asked. Cruiser followed them to a dirt road near Bay Minette, but they dumped the car and vanished. Probably locals. They know these woods. We spent that night in a grim little roadside motel called Bay Breeze Inn. The beach could wait. Brielle wouldn't sleep unless the lights were on. Mason curled up next to me and didn't move for hours. Leah kept starting awake every time a car passed outside. I barely slept. And here's the truth I hate admitting. I don't drive at night anymore. I can't. Because now I know the kind of darkness that's out there on empty roads. The kind that doesn't just wait. It hunts. All it takes is one wrong mile, one bad decision to save a few dollars, and you might find yourself facing something you never saw coming. And if that cop hadn't shown up when he did, we wouldn't be here. We'd just be another story no one would believe. Story 7. I used to think planning made things safe. You pick a time, book the days off, choose somewhere warm. You pack the right clothes, sunscreen, a few paperbacks. You do all that, and for a little while, you get to believe you're in control of your life. That illusion shattered the summer I turned 29. Jake and I had been together almost 5 years. He proposed on a rainy Sunday in March, on the couch, barefoot, after we'd spent half the day assembling IKEA furniture and watching reruns of Chopped. I said yes with my mouth full of popcorn. It wasn't a moment you see on Instagram, but it was us. Casual, easy, imperfect in a way that felt permanent. By July, the wedding talk had taken over. Seating charts, catering quotes, flower colors, it all felt suffocating. So we made a plan. One last trip. No Pinterest boards, no group chats, no Excel sheets. Just a week somewhere quiet. Jake found Westlake by accident. He was scrolling through a photography forum at 3 a.m., and someone had posted a moody black and white photo of a dock dissolving into a misty lake. No tags, no context. Just a caption. Somewhere near Westlake, New Hampshire. Not many go anymore. Jake loved stuff like that. Hidden towns, forgotten corners. He clicked around until he found more about it. A decommissioned resort town in northern New Hampshire, right near the Vermont border. Population under 300. No franchises. A single gas station, one general store. And somehow a 5-cabin rental lodge still running, barely. We booked it. No itinerary. Just 7 days off-grid in a lakeside cabin with no TV, no AC, and a screen door that never shut right. The kind of place where the air smells like pine and old wood, and you fall asleep to the sound of crickets you can actually hear. The drive from Boston was long, almost 4 hours up winding roads, past summer camps and antique barns. By the time we reached the town limits, the sun was starting to dip, throwing gold light across the treetops. The sign read, "Welcome to Westlake established 1884, Makkal Yennikai." Question marks? I said, leaning forward. Jake grinned. Adds to the charm. The lodge was called Stillwater Pines, a long, L-shaped structure with gray shingles and a sagging roofline, nestled beside a dock that jutted into the lake like a broken rib. The owner, a leathery man in his 60s named Tom, checked us in at a small front office that smelled like pipe smoke and lemon oil. "You're in cabin 4, end of the row," he said, sliding a key across the counter. "No Wi-Fi, but you'll find a shortwave in the cabin. Useful for weather, fishing reports, stuff like that. You folks fish?" "Just here to relax," Jake said. Tom nodded. "Well, Westlake's good for that." His tone was reserved, not unfriendly, but like someone waiting to see if we'd earn his warmth. Cabin 4 was a dream. Rough pine walls, mismatched rugs, a screened porch with 2 rocking chairs. The lake was glassy and dark, like a mirror left in the shade too long. A loon called out just as we dropped our bags inside. That night, we cooked pasta on the single-burner stove, drank cheap white wine out of coffee mugs, and played rummy on the porch. The whole thing felt like a memory before it was even over. By day 3, we'd slipped into a rhythm. Mornings were for coffee and lazy walks. Afternoons, we swam or read. Evenings, we grilled whatever we could find at the general store. Canned beans, eggs, frozen trout. There were maybe 5 other guests at the lodge, but we never saw them. The place was quiet in a way that made it feel forgotten by time. It was on the 4th day that we met Levi. Jake had gone into town for gas and ice, and I was on the dock, feet in the water, flipping through an old National Geographic someone left in the cabin. A man approached from the woods at the lake's edge. Mid-40s, sunburnt shoulders, a heavy canvas pack slung over one side. He moved slowly, like he'd been hiking for days. "Hot one today," he said, nodding toward the sun. "Yeah, water's perfect, though." He dropped the pack by the dock and sat near me, but not too close. I watched his hands. They were nicked up, stained with dirt. "You staying at the lodge?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just passing through?" There was something off about him. Not dangerous, just displaced, like he wasn't sure what year it was. He looked out at the water. "They ever tell you about the old road?" I furrowed my brow. "Old road?" He jerked his thumb toward the tree line. "Runs past the lake, west side. Locals call it Ridgeway Route. It's not on any new maps. Real old. Used to connect Westlake to the old mill towns back in the day. Nothing out there now but ruins and rust." Jake came back before I could ask more. When I told him about Levi, he frowned. "Guy sounds like a squatter." "He didn't seem dangerous," I said. "Just weird." That night, we found the road. It wasn't even intentional. We were looking for a place to stargaze. Tom had mentioned a clearing a few miles west of the lake, up past the hills. The gravel road we followed slowly narrowed, bordered by heavy brush and tall trees. Then we saw the sign. Wooden. Faded. Barely legible in the headlights. Ridgeway Route. Closed. "Should we?" Jake said. I don't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted a story. Maybe I didn't want to seem like the nervous one. We drove for about a mile before the road became more like a trail. The trees got denser. The moon vanished behind the canopy. Jake slowed the car, headlights sweeping across thick undergrowth. Then we saw it. A red SUV, parked diagonally across the trail, rusted, vines growing through the wheels. One of the back windows shattered. "Abandoned?" Jake asked. "I mean, maybe." We pulled up beside it. Jake got out first. "Wait here," he said. "No way," I replied, stepping out with him. The air smelled wrong, like iron and wet leaves. The hairs on my neck rose before I even saw what was behind the car. It was a tent, or what was left of one, half collapsed, smeared with something dark. Clothes were strewn across the ground, a camping stove on its side, and near the fire pit, a boot, a single boot, with a foot still inside. I turned and threw up behind a bush. Jake was silent, pale. "We have to go," I whispered. But we weren't alone. From the trees, movement, just enough to make the branches sway. Then a sound. Wet footsteps. Not running, just walking. Calm, heavy. Jake grabbed my hand. "Get in the car." We backed away together, fumbling with the doors. He started the engine. The headlights flared. And then we saw him. Levi, standing in the center of the trail, 20 feet ahead. Only now he was different. His face was streaked with something dark. His pack was gone, and in his hand was a small hatchet. He didn't move. Jake hit the gas. We veered around him, tires spitting gravel. I looked back once through the rear window. Levi stood motionless in the red haze of our taillights, just watching. We didn't stop driving until we hit the main road. Back at the lodge, we told Tom everything. The car, the tent, the boot, Levi. He listened quietly. Then, slowly, he exhaled. "You found Ridgeway," he said. "Shouldn't have gone that far." "What the hell is Ridgeway?" Jake snapped. Tom rubbed his jaw. "Old trail, used by trappers, then smugglers, then people who didn't want to be found. There's stories about things out there, people disappearing. It's why no one maps it anymore." Did someone die out there?" I asked. Tom didn't answer. That night, we didn't sleep. In the morning, we packed up and left before dawn. No breakfast, no goodbyes. I never found anything online. No missing hikers, no Levi, no Ridgeway Route. It's been a year. Jake won't talk about it. He keeps his nightmares to himself, but I know. I see the way he avoids camping stores, how he flinches at certain smells. As for me, I stopped thinking of vacations as escapes, because some roads don't take you back, and some lakes keep their secrets, And some people like Levi, they don't just live off the grid, they wait there. Story 8. I was 17 when I stopped feeling safe in places meant for joy. Vacations, crowds, laughter, sun-drenched pool decks, all of it used to mean something warm, something untouched. But that changed the summer of 2022. The trip started as a dream, a once-in-a-lifetime cruise through the southern Atlantic from Port Savannah to the Virgin Islands. My grandparents, after selling a family property, decided to use some of the money to treat the entire family to a 10-day luxury cruise. It was a surprise announcement during Thanksgiving dinner, and everyone screamed and hugged and cried. We were a big family, 15 of us total. I'm Ava, 17. Quiet, until I'm not. My older cousin Jonah, 19, was basically my best friend. My parents, Laura and Mark. My younger brother Ethan, 12, obsessed with Lego and Greek myths. Aunt Marie and Uncle Nick with their twin girls, Lila and Belle, both 13. My Uncle Dave and his wife Renee, and their 3-year-old toddler Finn. And of course the ones who made it happen, Grandpa Will and Grandma Sharon. The cruise ship was called the Sundancer Mirage, run by a company called Calypso Voyages. It looked like a floating luxury mall with 10 decks, 4 pools, 3 restaurants, a spa, a mini casino, and rooms that felt like hotel suites with balconies overlooking the open ocean. Our first 3 days on the water were exactly what you'd hope for. Swimming, mocktails by the pool, late-night buffets, family karaoke, laughing until our ribs hurt. I shared a room with Jonah, even though technically I should have bunked with Lila and Belle, but everyone knew I didn't mesh with them. I was quiet, artistic, always sketching in my little notebook. Jonah was my calm, funny, smart, fiercely protective. Having our own room felt like freedom. But it was day 4 when things began to shift. First subtly, then fast and sharp like a snapped bone. June 12th, night 4. The Looker. That night, Jonah and I went to the ship's teen club, the launch pad. It had fake neon decor, video games, and dancing. You only had to be 15 to get in, but they didn't check IDs too closely. I wore this black off-the-shoulder top I'd borrowed from Belle and paired it with dark jeans. Jonah was in his usual zip-up hoodie and backward cap. He left after about an hour to meet a girl he'd been flirting with earlier. Jenna, I think her name was. I stayed back and danced, drifting into my own little world until I felt off. I've always been sensitive to atmosphere, to the way a room shifts when someone steps into it with bad energy. And someone had. I looked up and saw him. He stood just outside the tinted glass doors of the teen club. He wasn't in the club, but behind the partition in the hallway, leaning on a railing. Tall, lanky, maybe in his mid-40s, dressed too formally in a tan jacket and khakis. His face was sunken, not ugly exactly, just hollowed out. His eyes didn't blink. He watched the room, but not randomly. He watched me. I turned, pretending to laugh at something, trying to shake the feeling, but when I looked back, he hadn't moved. Not even a twitch. I left. I didn't tell Jonah that night. I told myself he was probably just staff, maybe security. Maybe my nerves were overactive. But the next morning, at breakfast, he was there again. Alone, sitting near the buffet. No plate, no cup, just watching. He didn't blink. June 13th, day 5. The key card. I started carrying a small pocket knife I'd packed for opening snack bags and cutting fishing lines. I hid it in my back pocket or in my makeup case at night. I kept telling myself nothing was happening. Until we came back from a beach excursion in St. Croix. The sun was already low when Jonah and I returned to our cabin on deck 6. We were sticky from salt water and exhausted. As soon as we stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The cabin was cold. Too cold. Our small window was shut, but the curtains were drawn tight. The smell was different too. Our sunscreen had a coconut vanilla scent that usually lingered. But it was gone. Jonah froze. His duffel bag was unzipped. "Did you go through my stuff earlier?" he asked. "No," I said. I checked my sketch pad, tucked under my pillow, flipped through the pages. One was missing. Gone. My breath hitched. I think someone's been in here." Jonah's face darkened. "Stay here." He bolted out of the room to find ship security. I stood still for what felt like an hour, my ears pounding. When he came back, it was with a young woman in a Navy uniform. She looked bored, like she didn't really believe us. "There's no sign of forced entry," she said after inspecting the door. "Could have been housekeeping." "They don't take pages from journals," Jonah snapped. "We'll log it," she said, and left. That night, we put a chair under the doorknob. I didn't sleep. I didn't tell anyone what I'd drawn on the missing page. It was a man, the same one I'd seen watching me. I had sketched his face from memory the night before. June 14th, day 6, the silent deck. That afternoon, I went to find a quiet place to draw. There was a lounge deck on level 3 no one used. It didn't have a pool, just a few shaded cabanas and a bar that only opened on port days. I sat on a lounger in the far corner with my sketch pad and headphones, zoning out to music. I don't know how long he was watching me before I noticed. When I looked up, he was sitting just 10 feet away. No drink, no book, just sitting. Watching. I yanked out my headphones. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cracking. He said nothing. I stood, backing away. "Say something. What the hell do you want?" Still, nothing. Not a flinch. I turned and ran. June 15th, night 7. The room. Jonah stayed with his new girl that night. Said he'd be back late. I didn't argue. I didn't want to ruin his trip with my paranoia. I locked the cabin door myself. Pulled the curtains tight. Knife on the nightstand. Lights on. I fell asleep around midnight, curled around a pillow. Sometime later, I don't know what time, I woke to a click. Not loud. Software A, subtle shift in air pressure. The door. I froze. The chair we'd wedged under the knob was no longer there, and he was inside. He didn't rush me. He didn't speak. He simply stepped in, quiet as a dream, and shut the door behind him. I screamed. Louder than I thought possible. I scrambled back, grabbing the knife, slashing blindly. He came at me fast, trying to pin my wrists. His hands were cold, stronger than I expected. I bit him. Hard. That made him hesitate. Just long enough for the door to burst open. Jonah. He slammed the man against the dresser. The guy staggered back but didn't speak. He didn't shout or curse or even growl. He just looked empty. Security came minutes later. The man had a key card. One copied from a lost card 3 nights ago. He wasn't on the cruise manifest. No record of boarding. No ID. No cabin assignment. They detained him. We left the cruise in Puerto Rico the next morning. The after I testified when we got back home. The FBI got involved because it crossed state lines and happened in international waters. The man refused to give a name. Just kept repeating the words. She was chosen. She was already seen. I don't know what that means. I don't want to. We never got a real answer. Some think he was a stowaway. Others think he was a rogue former crew member. The cruise line buried it fast. We never got our money back. I can't stay in rooms without deadbolts now. I don't sleep in cabins, and I can't ride elevators without picturing that door clicking open. My sketchpad still has that gap, page 43, torn clean out. Whoever he was, he wanted me to know he'd seen it.